But eventually he came around. He even decided we ought to do a television program about it. It was Jack who arranged for CBS to do the taping in the White House. Nervous? Absolutely. I think I only got through that taping with the help of Marlboros and several strong scotches. The program aired on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1962, simultaneously on CBS and NBC, and the following Sunday on ABC. I'm told that 46 million Americans watched it. I was not one of them, but I'm glad for the visibility that it gave to our work. I just thought everything in the White House should be the best. The entertainment that was given, that if it was an American company who could help, I like to do that. If not, just so long as it was the best. My husband and I shared the conviction that artists should be honored by society. Well, the arts have always been treated as a poor stepchild in this country. Our great museums and performing companies, of course, should be supported. And you know Jack tried so hard. When we succeeded in bringing the great cellist Pablo Casals to the White House, I had to station my social secretary, Letitia Baldridge, behind a doorway that was directly in Jack's line of view. That way she could signal to him when the music was really finished. Otherwise, there was always the danger that Jack would leap up at any slight pause in the music and start shaking the artist's hand. I had hoped so much to one day have a minister for the arts in the cabinet, as they do in France. Meeting the French Minister of Culture was one of the highlights of my years in the White House. I remember saying to him, "Monsieur Malraux, it is such a pleasure to meet you. I have such an affinity for your country. Do you know, both of my grandparents were French?" What's that? Yours were too? Monsieur Malraux, I have been thinking so much about something you said. You said that art, that public places with sculpture, can affect someone as they're rushing off to work, perhaps change their opinion of themselves. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Family, though, that's most important. Whatever work I did, I never let it interfere with our family life. Jack and I both wanted a large family. When we found out last year that I was expecting another baby, we were both ecstatic. But when Patrick was born in August, he only lived 2 days. And Jack was inconsolable. Shocking as it was for me, I think it was even worse for him. He nearly collapsed over it. And I was so melancholy after Patrick's death. I went away on vacation and perhaps stayed away longer than I should have. Perhaps I was a bit snappish when I got back. I could have made his life so much happier those last few weeks. I could have tried harder to get over my melancholy. I could have kept him from going to Texas. A political fence-mending trip, starting the campaign for 1964. All that he said to me was, I'd love you to go with me, but only if you want to go. So I went with him to Texas, even though I knew I would hate every minute of it. But Jack wanted me there, and it seemed a small sacrifice to make on my part. And certainly I did have a feeling it was going well. There were such big crowds of such wavy, nice, happy people, wonderful assemblies with warm welcomes. 3 times we were greeted with the yellow roses of Texas. Only when we got to Dallas, they gave me red roses. I remember thinking, how funny to be given red roses when you're in Texas. When we got to Dallas, there was the biggest motorcade from the airport, and when we were all in the car and the motorcade was ready to begin, one of Jack's assistants came running up to me and he said to me, "Now you make sure to look to your left, away from the president. Wave at the people on your side. If you both wave at the same voter, it's just a waste." So in the motorcade, I usually was looking mostly to the left and he was looking mostly to the right, which is one reason we were not looking at each other very often. And it was terribly hot, just blinding all of us. And at one point, Mrs. Connolly, the governor's wife, who was sitting in front of me, she turned around and she said, "Well, Mr. President, you certainly can't say Dallas doesn't love you." And he said, "No, you can't," or something like that. And she said, "We'll be there soon." Now, in a motorcade, there is always noise, and there are motorcycles beside you, a lot of them backfiring. There was a noise, but it didn't seem to me like any different sort of noise because there's always so much noise and motorcycles and things. I was looking to the left, and I heard Governor Connolly suddenly call out, "Oh, no, no, no!" And so I turned to the right. And all I remember is my husband. He had this sort of puzzled look on his face. His hands were up. I remember thinking he looked just as if he had a slight headache. I just remember that. No blood or anything. And then he sort of fell into my lap. And then I just remember being down in the car with his head on my lap. I know that there were photographs later of me climbing out the back, but I don't remember that at all. I just remember being down in the car and there was so much confusion. And it seemed like an eternity, that ride to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital, they tried to take me away. They tried to grab me, but I kept saying to people, "I am not going to leave him. I am not going to leave him. I am not going to leave him." I remember this long corridor. This big policeman brought me a chair, so I sat there and I watched them going in with saline solutions and other things. And for a minute I thought to myself, maybe he's not gone. Maybe he's still alive. I knew he was gone. And then a doctor came towards me and he said, "Mrs. Kennedy, you need a sedative." And I said to him, "I want to be with him when he goes." And this doctor forced his way in. He just kept saying, "It's her prerogative, it's her prerogative." So I finally got in. Oh, there must have been about 40 people in that operating room. There was already a sheet over Jack, but his foot was sticking out of the sheet, so I took his foot and I kissed it. And then someone found his hand under the sheet, and I just held on to it all the time that the priest was saying the extreme unction. And all I could think was, if only I had been looking to the right. I would have seen the first shot hit him and I could have pulled him down. But I was looking to the left. Well, there's this one last thing that I would like to say. I'm actually really rather ashamed of myself. Jack, everything he ever quoted was always Greek or Roman. But one thing keeps going through my head, this line from a musical comedy. I remember saying to Bobby, "I have got to talk to somebody. I've got to see somebody." This line from a musical comedy has become almost an obsession with me. At night, before going to bed, we had this old Victrola. We'd play a couple of records. You know, I'd get out of bed when it was so cold at night. And there was a song that he loved at the end. He loved Camelot. The last song on the last side of the record. Ask every person if he's heard the story, and tell it loud and clear if he has not, how once there was a spot for one brief, shining moment. And it'll never be that way again. Oh, I know there'll be other great presidents. The Johnsons have been wonderful to me, but there'll never be another Camelot. Well, I'll tell all of you one thing. When this is all finally over, I am going to crawl into the deepest retirement there is. I'm not going to be one of those people who goes around talking about themselves. I don't want to go out on a Kennedy drive, to go to a Kennedy airport, to visit a Kennedy school. I don't want medals for Jack. I don't want to be seen by crowds. I have everything I've ever wanted. I have that flame at Arlington Cemetery. Sometimes at night you come over the hill and you see that Lee mansion all lit up. It's one of the first things Caroline ever recognized. I care about that flame. And Caroline, do you know, all through the funeral services, she held on to my hand like a trooper. She's my helper. She's mine now. John, well, John makes friends with everyone immediately. He surprises me in so many ways. Do you know, I suppose there's really only one thing I can do now, isn't there? Save my children. They have got to grow up without thinking back at their father's murder all the time. They have got to grow up intelligently, attuned to life in a very important way. That is how I wish to live the rest of my life. Oh, I can't thank all of you enough for coming here today and listening to me. Because moving to New York with John and Caroline, that will be good for me. That is how we're going to live the rest of my life. Well, perhaps together, all of us, perhaps we can help others like those crowds outside my house, to understand we are all human. Even though a person may be very well known, they still hold in their hearts the emotions of anyone else. For those moments that are the most important we will ever know in life, for marriage and death and birth. And so, I do remain Mrs. John F. Kennedy. Thank you.